Good morning again and happy Saturday. And thank you for joining us at our third National People's Assembly. This is our second media briefing that we've had. We're going to get right into it. We have all 5 of our national officials that are joining us today, our Treasurer General, our National Chairperson, our Deputy Secretary General, our Secretary General, and of course our Commander-in-Chief. Our Secretary General will do the brief, and then we will take your many questions. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you very much, TG and our spokesperson, and good morning to members of the media and people of South Africa. We gathered here this morning to inform you in terms of the status of this third NPA. The Economic Freedom Fighters successfully concluded the second day of the Third National People's Assembly yesterday. The day stood as a testament to the unity, discipline, and ideological commitment of our movement, a movement firmly rooted in pursuit of economic freedom in our lifetime. The day began with the singing of the national anthem, a unifying symbol of our collective struggle, followed by prayers from various religious faiths, embodying the EFF's commitment to diversity and inclusivity. The host province, Gauteng, represented by the provincial chairperson Nkululeko Dunga, extended a powerful and warm welcome, setting the revolutionary tone for the day. Messages of solidarity and support followed, delivered by representatives of countries, political organizations, traditional leaders, and EFF members from across the African continent. These messages affirmed that the struggle for economic emancipation is not only South Africa's burden, but a continental and a global aspiration. The highlight of the day was the commanding and the passionate delivery of the President and the Commander-in-Chief's political report. In a historic address that reverberated through the hall, the President reviewed the last 5 years of the EFF. The report was just not the recount of our achievements, but a powerful reflection of the EFF's theoretical underpinnings, a reiteration of our 7 cardinal pillars and our electoral performance, the exponential growth of the organization, and an unflinching analysis of the social, cultural, political, and economic landscape in South Africa. The President's gratitude to the sacrifice and the loyalty of EFF members and supporters over the past 11 years was met with a tremendous applause, affirming the collective will to advance the revolution. Vibrant cultural performances followed, featuring music and dance groups that ignited the spirit of the delegates, blending the revolutionary cause with the celebration of African identity and culture. The following court discussions on the political report were marked by the intensity and purpose. Delegates presented incisive deliberations and questions on the political report, unpacking its themes and proposing innovative solutions to the pressing challenges outlined. Topics ranged from economy, insourcing, education, and apartheid special planning to the agency of addressing land reform, organizational restructuring, and the organization's political future. The exchanges were both critical and constructive, reflecting the intellectual depth and the revolutionary consciousness of the Assembly. The Deputy Secretary General presented the credentials which constituted 90% of the voting delegates. The credentials were adopted, therefore the Assembly correlated with 90% delegates in attendance on this conference. Following this, the third NPA convener of the Special Disciplinary Committee, Commissar Renelo Mashabela, presented the NPA rules and procedures which will govern the conduct of the delegates throughout the proceedings, which also were accordingly adopted. The EFF appreciates the conduct and the discipline of the delegates from the hotels, transport, and the venue. We are glad to announce that we have had 0 incidents of misconduct and the delegates have been punctual in attending the plenary sessions. So we therefore look forward to continuing with our program today and advance the resolutions that will shape the future of our organization and our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary General. We are going to take questions. We'll go row by row. So I'm going to start in the first row and identify any hands. I'm going to start over here. Anybody in the first row? One. So I hope we'll move the mic for us in the first row. 2, 3, 4. I think we'll just take the first row, then we'll move on to the second row. Thank you. Let's go.
Good morning, Shannon Merrick, Scassi, Broadcasting Africa, all protocol observed. The former EFF CCT, I think since yesterday when the Commander-in-Chief announced the plenary open, you are all former CCT members. So my question to the former CCT members, on 16th August, we announced that there are factions in EFF. We went further, we announced the name of the factions in EFF, and as we sit now today on 14 December, out of the 7 people we named, 5 of them are not at this plenary. They moved to MK. How do you respond to that? I'll come to the speech of the CIC later, because there I want to ask a lot of questions about Lenin, Fanon, Karl Marx, but for now let me deal with the gossip first. 5 of the 7 people we named in August are not here. They are at MK. How do you respond to that? We named the factions in EFF as media before, and we were correct. Thank you.
Number 2.
Greetings to the outgoing officials of the EFF. It's Natasha Piri here from SABC News. Mr. Malema, when you delivered your political reports, you had said that South Africa's black majority must be shown the institutional and structural violence of the conditions under which they live, so they do not fear the use of violence to change these. Is this not tantamount to calling for violence? Also, in one of your documents, I think it was organizational character and redesign, you proposed that members that want to serve in the CCT must have a post-matric qualification. Perhaps if you can just clarify and explain the rationale behind this, especially when you talk about people of organic intellectual. Are you not afraid that you'll be excluding some who are not academically inclined, and do you expect a pushback to this proposal? And then furthermore, you also mentioned the establishment that the EFF couldn't establish the Women's Command due to COVID-19. What are the plans around that? Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you very much. Good morning at the top table and my colleagues down here. It's Mshengu from Sunday World. Mr. Malema, on your political report, I took particular interest where you speak about the question of what constitutes progressive and what constitutes black consciousness. And then you go on in what I analyze as an attack on MK party, so to speak. What is the state of the progressive caucus going forward? In fact, in your view, what constitutes what constitutes progressive or what constitutes black consciousness? And in light of your speech and the comments that you made around that, the black unity, criminals masquerading as messiahs of black unity who didn't do it when they were heads of state, and we all know who was the head of state, now the leader of the MK party. Is this the end of the road in the relationship between EFF and MK party? And as you said about the question on progressive and on what constitutes progressive and black consciousness that the delegates must discuss, what sort of view will you be putting on the table when that particular debate ensues about what constitutes those ones? And just generally, what inspired that speech holistically, which I think broken into 3 parts, was first about the ideological position of the EFF, and then the questions that I just asked about progressive and black unity, and then finally about the successes of the EFF in the past 5 years. And then SG, you speak about the credentials, 90%. What is the actual number of that 90% of delegates? And the 10% that didn't attend, what were the issues that brought about those? And maybe the political hot potato in the room, the absence of Mr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. I also saw that Mr. Fanamokwena is not here. Are there any updates from leadership about their absence at this particular conference? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 4.
Thank you so much, Junior Komalo from Newsroom Africa. Just to also expand on the question that's been asked by my colleague, when it comes to the former national spokesperson of the EFF, what is his status in the organization? Because I remember we asked this question at a media briefing leading up to this conference of the EFF, and the leadership said that we were just spreading rumors at the time, but we have not seen him at the conference. Just maybe for people to get clarity on why is he not here, if he is not here, and just clarity on that. But specifically to the EFF leader, Mr. Malema, yesterday when you were delivering your political report, you thanked your secretary and the TG of the party. But the other two officials, you didn't mention anything about them. Is it that you are not happy about the work that they did? Just some clarity on that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I will hand over to the official. President, will you respond first? Okay.
Yeah. You know, when you want to deal with literature, you must first read. And don't read gossip columns. Because you want to speak about violence and you attribute that to me. When I'm in the speech quoting what Frantz Fanon says on violence, that our conditions are a product of a violent colonial conquest. And those who want to hold to the benefits of that conquest are not going to give over those things without putting up a violence. And therefore violence is inevitable. So when you call for the expropriation of land without compensation, it's violence against those who have the land that they got that was ill-gotten. But it's a violence that is characterized by justice. Now we make a point there, which Fanon makes, that at the end of every revolutionary movement, if confronted with resistance from the oppressor, which normally is a violent resistance, you have no any other option but to opt for a violent response. It's not the first thing that was done, but was said by the EFF. It was done by the ANC, which was the most peaceful organization, surviving through writing letters to the Queen and sending delegations. And at that time when the ANC was sending delegations to the Queen, the transport system was not so advanced. So it took them 3 months to send a delegation in a ship to send a letter to the Queen, wait for the response, take another 3 months to come. And over a period of time, the ANC realized that this is not working. Let's go take up arms and fight. And that's why you are here. You are here because of the product of violence. That's what violence did. So this thing that you want to sugarcoat violence and create an impression that this was never done, this is not us. Violence and the revolution are inseparable. We are working within the Constitution of South Africa, but if meted with violence, will not hesitate to respond with violence. The Women's Command, one delegate stood up there and said, but why do we need this? Because we've got so many women in the EFF as we speak now. So what are they going to do in the Women's Command when they are actually in this conference, 60%, 70%? Yeah. In the structures, there is women. So what is it that we are going to do ourselves as women in the absence of men, which we can't do in the presence of men? It's a debate that will go to the commissions. They will talk about it and then we'll hear what do they think, because there is a resolution of the Second National People's Assembly to establish a women's command. If you don't take a different decision, it means that decision stands. And therefore, the new leadership will have to be seized with that thing. Do not undermine the point I make about the re-establishment of the EFF. EFF was formed twice. It was formed in 2013 and almost got killed by COVID-19. And then when conditions were normalized, we now had to come back to form the EFF. So how are we going to do that? From the EFF, from the Women's Command, from the Student Command, there was no time. We had to concentrate at the primary task, and that task was to rebuild the structures of the EFF post the COVID-19. But you know, I've observed, and I forgot to make that point yesterday, I've observed some level of opportunism. So when a person thinks we're not going to make it in the CCT, let's form a women's command. If they don't make it, let's form the youth command. Let's form student command. Now there is a call for a union. Why should it be a decision of the EFF to form a union? Because the formation of a union is a decision of the workers. I'm not a worker. I'm not going to sit here and take a decision on behalf of the workers. The workers have to take a decision on the formation of a union, and that is, if that is a legitimate, credible union, itself will say we are ideologically aligned with the EFF because it represents what we stand. I've seen a lot of people forming unions out of unemployment, especially some from the EFF. They lose positions, they go and form unions. Those unions died even before they existed because that thing of Labor Act requires a lot of things. It's not like the formation of a political party. And we hear the call that the teachers want the union, they're being dominated by SADU and all of that. What stops them from forming a union? Let them form it. The EFF is there to align with any progressive leftist political organizations, unions, and non-governmental organizations. So there is a strong opposition to, which was raised yesterday, to dissolution of student command, and that no, the youth command can come, but there must be student command. You can see that people are creating so many levels of leadership, so many fragmented structures everywhere. Having been part of forming a political party, I will not take easy decisions on forming anything. It's not an easy decision. It's not. You are going to form a women's command, and then it's going to come to you. Hey, our first so you must put your hand also. I said, what? So the same, look at student command. We're carrying it ourselves. It can't carry itself. Then we must form another youth command and then carry it. With what? It creates unnecessary contest. What is wrong having a youth command? With one leadership, you can even put it in the constitution of the youth command that in the leadership of the youth command, there should be this category of people. There should be unemployed youth, there should be professionals, there should be rural youth, township, there should be students. And then you know, in the assignment of those things, they give each other responsibility. Since you are this, concentrate on this. But there is one center where we know we go there if there are issues. Because we're going to go there to know it's not us, it's a youth command. You go to, it's not us, it's a, remember you are talking about these other structures at this level. They are going to have to go to the ground, provinces, regions, and branches. And the EFF itself must also go to build its own regions and branches and what and provinces. We can't overburden ourselves because there is uncontrollable political ambition from some quarters which can't wait to get their turn. To be black conscious is not a mere saying. It is what you do it is your consciousness, it is your alignment, it is what kind of decisions you are for. So you can't be black conscious and kill people in Marigan. We're not fighting. They left the building of the employer. They left it. They left it because you will say they are disturbing the business here, they are a threat to property. They left it and went to stay on a mountain. And a black conscious leader takes guns and go and shoot them at the mountain. When they are away from the establishment's property. So the fist must fall, gets shot at. And what is even more worse, a lie that he has introduced free higher education. That there was a year where he announced that from next year there's going to be free higher education, and then he left and there was nothing. He said that because he knew he was leaving anyway. It's not black consciousness to lie to black kids. It's not black consciousness. And there's nothing black consciousness about MK. Nothing. So Progressive Caucus is a name we are given to each other in Parliament for convenience sake. That if there are issues that we want to lobby, these are the first people we start with. It doesn't stop us from lobbying the DA, it doesn't stop us from lobbying the ANC or whatever, but these ones we have agreed on primary program of land expropriation without compensation, all of that and all of that. And at the center of those things was the EFF drafting those things. So a progressive organization has to be left in orientation. It has to subscribe to Marx, Lenin, even if it doesn't subscribe to Fanon, but that's fine. But as the most basic, you have to align with the progressive international left. And not just by saying in rallies, it must be in your documents, it must be in your policy that this is where we stand. You don't say we are left because you are talking to EFF. When you go to talk to DA, you're saying we must never support the unconstitutionalist, you're referring to EFF, and you can't even point which position of the EFF is unconstitutional. We're not going to answer the question about Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. You've got his number, and some of you talk to him, call him. I'm not responsible for Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. 90% of the people who were here, who expected to be here, are here. That's what matters. Whoever is not here was not supposed to be here from the beginning. So you are not going to reduce this organization to some individual. We are going to refuse that. We are going to refuse that. We gave a very long political report yesterday, like 80 pages. It didn't have such names. You are intellectually so inferior that you can't even engage with that document, and then you bring gossip. We must be monitoring movements of individuals. Why concern about one person over so many people who are here? As if he is the conference. As if he's not here, conference will not happen. It's going to happen, it's happening without him. It's not here. I heard people say he's here, he's doing this. He's not here. He's not here. And it's not our interest to entertain such nonsense. It's not our interest. We're dealing with political issues here, not egoism, not people who think they are bigger than this organization. It will show them once again that it's bigger than all of them. So we as a matter of principle, SG and policy position, we're no longer going to answer any nonsense about Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. Never. When a journalist asks you that question, you must say, ask another question. You can be smarter than that. Ask something else. This matter is closed. You can talk about it amongst yourselves, but don't bring it to us. We are refusing that. Don't do that. Don't reduce the whole ideological political report to Sunday world gossip, because that's what they thrive on. And we know what is the relationship of Sunday world, its owners and Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. We don't want to talk about it. Don't push us. Don't push us. We know Mbuyiseni Ndlozi's friendship with the owner of Sunday World. And by that extension, we know his relationship with Sunday World, which we can easily describe without any fear. No one can do anything about it. No one. I spoke about all the officials. There's another problem of factionalism and selective hearing. I thanked the national chairperson. I thanked the officials. I thanked the national chairperson, and I thanked the DSG. Then I mentioned, I went into town about the SG, and I went to town about the TG. So to say I didn't thank them is dishonest. You know, I mentioned them. Yes. Even my family, I mentioned it in passing. You wanted me to mention it in detail and call them by name. Matumi Mashatula, Malema. I said my family. And then in the family, I went out to thank my wife. But you can't come here and say I didn't thank my family. So, as you speak, there's areas where you put emphasis on. And you guys, I don't know why you're being like this, because I thought you'll be feeling sorry for yourself. Because I was there speaking to you for 3 hours, 40 minutes. You want to add another 2 names. You must know each name is a minimum of 10 minutes. So every time you say you didn't include what you must know, it's likely to take 40 minutes, that subject alone. So if you wanted me to just go to town about everyone, would have taken the whole day with CCT members, because if I go to town with all of you here, then another question is going to be, hey, we heard you about officials, but what about CCT members? Are you not happy with them? I thanked them, thanked the ground forces. And then someone's going to say, why not thanking Vuyana? For what? No, everyone was covered. SG, I don't know if there's something you can deal with.
Thanks, President. Let me deal with the issue of the credentials, because I know you are interested in this afternoon's program, so you want to start doing the numbers. So the confirmed delegates that are voting delegates in this conference, it's 2,243. Remember, we explained the delegation that is non-voting. We've taken you through that. So the voting delegates expected is 2,243. The delegates that are present is 2,026, which accounts for 90% of the delegates. So the 217 delegates that are not here, they've got various issues, funerals, family commitments. Some of them, especially in the Eastern Cape, you know that there are a lot of traditional ceremonies, so those things that are important. But all of them, there's no delegate that is not accounted for, even in terms of apologies. They are members of the EFF. The guidelines that were adopted by the CCT in August, that has brought us here, the Third National People's Assembly guidelines, says that for the conference to have a quorum and be able to proceed, it needs physical presence of the delegates of minimum 50%. Plus one. So meaning that for us to proceed, we needed to have 1,122 delegates in this assembly. As things stand now, we are sitting at 2,026 delegates, which is 90%. And by the way, you can go and check all other conferences. For you to get 90% attendance of delegation, it's a show of a strong, solid, organized organization. The normal you get is 65%. If you did well, it's 70%. You can go and check in the other parties. So for us to get 90%, we are very proud of that. It shows that there's clear organization coming from branches, the regions. They knew where these delegates, the provinces, they went to account and fetch all these delegates to make sure that all of them, they are here and they are present. So we are very happy just with that attendance, and it shows that our delegates, our structures, they are committed to the survival and the life and the growth of this organization. I think that was all that I wanted to clarify. The rest, President dealt with it.
The post-matric.
Yeah, the qualification to stand, which will, the constitutional amendment will deal with that, is a post-matric qualification, because we need to produce a society of educated people, and leaders must lead by example. But post-matric does not mean necessarily matric. It means any other thing that is equivalent to matric and beyond. We are not going to have illiterate leaders. Zuma should have actually been a good example why we don't need such things. So we must look at Zuma and say something like this, it must never happen again. And the ANC is about to commit a similar mistake because the guy looks like they want Mbalula. So we're not part of that. We want to give to society the best in society. So the EFF has been in existence for 11 years. If you are a ground force of the EFF, why have you not been to school? Because the EFF prides itself in Sifunda Genkane. You even go around talk about it yourself, but you never funded anywhere Genkane. So Sifunda Genkane should have meant members of the EFF who come from poor family backgrounds are the ones that are going to be joining that struggle so that they have access to education. So there's no one here who can come and say, we never had an opportunity to go to school. If you say that, you are arguing like my mother, and you are so young to be my mother. Go to school. It's not late. But there are old people in the EFF, Abu Mam Kaula, Mam Sonti, Abu Kalniaus, and what. You know that these ones have received a certificate of life. They are fine. Because you can't say to those who go to school. They were denied an opportunity to go to school. Those are the people who were denied the opportunity to go to school. We were not denied. We can't blame Bantu education and what. You know, the question was asked by Mawandoru. It can't be correct that you are a councillor of the EFF for 5 years and you don't have matric. And in all the councils, they offer bursaries for councillors. A privilege that we don't have. You don't use it. You don't do anything about it to personally develop yourself. You go to a legislature, you don't have matric. You do nothing about it. Yet there are bursaries in the legislature. There are bursaries national chair in parliament. You have no reason. I know there's some university here, Regenesis working. Everybody who pass out, namu waritsi who pass out, korupala wapala leke Regenesis. Unobana bat ba graduate ba urukikai ba Regenesis, and bana ba ma councillor in particular. They are graduating in the Regenesis. I must check this Regenesis, or what is the story there? So it can't be, comrades, all of us, journalists, members of society, political analysts, on this point we have to agree that People must go to school. There are a lot of opportunities available for people to go to school. That should be something that unites all of us. That should be one thing that should not even make us fight about it. Unless it's an exceptional case which people will come and present it and say, but yeah, this is the story, this is this. But other than that, at the first interaction with everything else should be school. Should be school. And we are not ashamed of that policy. And I don't see the MPA rejecting going to school. I don't see that. You know, there are comrades who were supposed to be MMCs. They couldn't be because they didn't have matric. We refused. And in the EFF, before you become an MMC, we interview you. And the latest, we have introduced the cameras to record you when we interview you, because when they don't pass the interview, they go around talking bad about the EFF. So once you talk bad, we release your interview so that people can hear what were we dealing with. You say to a person who wants to be MMC of transport, what does JMPD stands for? And he has been there. It's not a new councillor. He has been there. He doesn't know nothing. Even that J of Johannesburg, I see him. Or no Johannesburg. What? And then we must take those people to council to service the people of Johannesburg. We must take our people very seriously. Because one delegate yesterday in the discussion stood up and said, what are you guys saying about these councillors who were there for the past 5 years? They are almost closing now. They've never uttered a word. Bangene council basela amanzi nje. Babulisa mayor, babulisa speaker, bathatha isithombe. And that's it. So it amounts to exactly what we are talking about. Uzothetha ngantoni asakwazi ukufunda. Structures Act, Municipal Structures Act, Municipal Financial Management Act. You will hear things. And you're dealing with criminal syndicate of service providers and municipal managers. The real items are put in the middle of a thick document. Pagination, what? Agreed. A pagination, you don't know what they're talking about. Tomorrow you wake up, but no, the electricity has increased. Municipality has increased electricity. Where did we do that? We never did that. But not the previous councillor. No one said that. But when they said pagination 3, that's where that thing was. He says never read a document. But to take people to school and to force people to go to school is the preparation to govern. You can't govern with illiterate people. So we're preparing the best of the best in society. And I liked one suggestion yesterday. They said, we must, as the EFF, take a deliberate decision that every year we're taking so many people to school from amongst fighters. Or in this province, 110. In this province, 110. Then take them to school. I found that thing to be very progressive. Thanks, Somlo.
Thank you, President. Let's go to row 2 from the front. Tato will take